Thank you very much, Mr Dowd, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship this afternoon. I'm also grateful to the Shadow Minister for bringing this discussion before the committee today. These Liberal Democrat tabled amendments would make it an offence to sell tobacco products, herbal smoking products or cigarette papers to a person under the age of 25, rather than to anyone born on or after the 1st of January 2009. The amendments also seek to change the age of sale notices to align with this change in the age of sale, which is why there are so many consequential amendments. This group of amendments also includes Amendment 29 and 30, which cover proxy sale of tobacco products in Scotland. To save time and to assure the committee, instead I will discuss those particular issues during the Clause 2 debate, which will begin hopefully shortly, as that relates directly to the points in that group on proxy sales rather than to age of sale. As we heard from our expert witnesses during the oral evidence, smoking is the number one preventable cause of death, of disability and of ill health. It claims around 80,000 deaths a year across the United Kingdom. It causes 1 in 4 of all cancer deaths, and it kills, as the Shadow Minister rightly pointed out, it kills 2/3 of its long-term users. I want to say to the Honourable Gentleman, the member for Windsor, there is no liberty whatsoever in addiction. And what we are seeking to do is to make sure that the next generation are never addicted to tobacco products in the way that the current generation and previous generations have been. That is the real freedom here, the freedom not to be addicted to a product that, quite frankly, would not be allowed were it invented today.
Will you give way on that point? I take the point he makes, but one of the things I would say about the potentials of this legislation is the double standards, perhaps, that are implied throughout it. So it talks about addiction, and I disagree with him, but it's a perfectly reasonable point to make. But the same could be true of gambling. The same could be true of alcohol. We allow, for example, gamblers to advertise on football shirts, for example. So if he takes the logic of his argument all the way through to its necessary end conclusion, then this government must be legislating for all those addictive social things which have incredibly damaging situations as well.
I understand this argument, but it actually does not hold weight. There is no safe level of smoking, and that is the fundamental issue here. You can drink responsibly. You can gamble responsibly. We have laws in place to protect the harms of those things. We can argue, and it's not the place of this bill, Mr Dowd, that whether those measures go far enough or whether they are too far at present, but there are protections in place for alcohol harms and for gambling harms. But when it comes to tobacco, this is a product that kills 2/3 of the users of this product. And as a state, we've got a duty to save lives.
So I take the point somewhat, but I think that there's a conflation of argument here about cigarettes and tobacco. And if I may say so, sir, you alternated somewhat between the two. That may be the case for cigarettes. But for example, and I'm not a smoker, I've never been a smoker of cigarettes, but at New Year's Eve I had a big cigar with my dad and brother. The last one I had with them before that was my brother's 30th. I think that was a safeful, pleasurable thing to do, which the state shouldn't really be infringing on. And it's not just cigarettes which you're going after, it's all tobacco products.
Look, the fact is, the primary consumption of tobacco in this country is through cigarettes. But tobacco is not a safe product. There is no safe level of tobacco use. And look, he might enjoy a cigar every now and then, and that is a risk he will take, is prepared to take. and that the law allows him to take. But what I would argue is that that is still a risky behaviour. Tobacco, in whatever form it is consumed, has health defects to it for him, and this bill is seeking to ensure that we have a future generation that is weaned off tobacco, nicotine, the toxins and the pollutants that come from a range of products, and that we give the tobacco industry no room for manoeuvre to shift from one product to another. This is about ensuring we have a generation that is freed from the addiction and the dirt and the death that tobacco brings. Because, well, if you'll let me continue with the argument, because, Mr. Dowd, tobacco puts a huge pressure on our NHS. It costs taxpayers billions of pounds on our health and care services, £3.1 billion a year from smoke-related illnesses. But the cost of smoking to our economy is also huge. £18.3 billion lost in productivity every year, with smokers a third more likely to be off sick. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill will deliver on this Labour government's manifesto commitment to create the world's first smoke-free generation. And I have to say, to be fair to the Shadow Minister who has supported this bill at second reading, who supported the previous iteration of this bill that her government brought in, it is to the credit of the Right Honourable Gentleman, the member for Richmond and Northallerton, that that government did bring in the original iteration of the Tobacco and Vapes Bill. I pay credit to him for showing that leadership on public health, and I pay credit to her for always being a vocal supporter when it comes to tobacco control and indeed to the scourge of youth vaping as well. I only wish that some of her colleagues understood the sense of what we are seeking to do here, because that prospect of having the next generation of children becoming adults in a smoke-free country where they will never ever legally be able to purchase tobacco products. The older generations who can will never legally be able to buy them by proxy, leads to a situation where effectively tobacco is a thing of the past for the next generation. And for me, that is a real prize here in terms of public health, in terms of the NHS, and in terms of the economy. I'll give way.
Chambers. I agree with everything that's been said. It's a very sort of powerful summary you've given, the Minister has given. And I wanted to remind everyone, when we discussed freedom of choice and lack of freedom of choice, the extreme examples we had by some of the expert witnesses yesterday, when they talked about the example of someone who had their leg amputated purely down to complications that are a result of smoking, and they feel the same day they have the need to light up and have another cigarette. I mean, this is not, there's absolutely no freedom of choice when you're addicted to this substance. And this might sound comical, but I think it reiterates how there is no safe level of passive smoking at all. As a vet, we struggle to manage asthma in pets and dogs and cats when they come from houses where owners smoke. That is how dangerous this is. Now, this is obviously a public health. We're not trying to conflate human health with animal health, but the perception that there's a safe level of smoking is completely and utterly wrong.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman, the member for Winchester, for that intervention, because he's absolutely right. And look, any of us who heard that evidence on Tuesday can't not have been shocked at what medical professionals see with their own eyes, not just in the procedures that they have to take, like amputations, but then to see those people so addicted to that product that they then have to light up having lost both legs. Very powerful contribution, and he's absolutely right to labour the point that there is no freedom in addiction, and what we are seeking to do is to free the next generation from ever being in the situation that he reminds us was outlined in detail by professionals in the evidence session. Which leads me on to the series of amendments, because simply raising the age of sale to 25 will only raise the age that people start smoking. It will not meet this government's, or indeed the previous government's, ambition to make the United Kingdom smoke-free. Because we also know, and we heard it from the 4 chief medical officers from England, from Scotland, from Wales, from Northern Ireland, all in unison, we heard that whenever there's been a change in the legislation on tobacco control in the past, the industry, the tobacco industry, the clever, the smart, they see that that road's been blocked off, so they find another one. The industry has been swift to refocus their tactics. For example, when flavoured cigarettes, including menthol, were banned in the UK, the industry used product innovation to exploit loopholes in the ban. They created new products such as menthol filter tips and cigarette-like menthol cigarellos. These examples, I think, Mr. Dowd, demonstrate how the tobacco industry will always regroup and refocus their efforts to respond to whatever regulations are in place. So if we raise the age of sale to 25 only, industry will likely change their business model to target older age groups. And look, let's be clear here at what we are seeking to do. We're not criminalising current smokers. People who are legally able to purchase tobacco products and use them, consume them, will always be able to do that. But we are having a cut-off point. We are saying to the tobacco industry, this is your customer base now. That's it. Game over. What you've got is all you've got. You can't kill 2/3 of your customer base and expect some other people to come along the conveyor belt. We're stopping the conveyor belt. What you've got is it. And we will do all we can to make that customer base even smaller through smoking cessation services, through effective targeting of existing smokers to get them to quit. But this is it. This is your customer base, and it will shrink rapidly over the next few years, so that no child born after the 1st of January 2007 will ever be able to legally be sold tobacco products. Means that, Mr. Dowd, some of the examples we've heard from members in the course of this debate on a 45-year-old being asked to show ID, I think is an irrelevance. Yeah. It misses the point. The impact assessment that accompanies this bill says really clearly that in 25 years' time, it's not that long, 25 years' time, in 2050, we expect smoking prevalence of the age group of 30 and below to be near zero. So the logical consequence of that is there's going to be very few people of middle adult age going into shops to purchase tobacco. And look, the reality is there probably isn't going to be a market for tobacco products by then. these retailers will have diversified into something else because there won't be a market of sufficient scale for tobacco to be sold. So all of these arguments that have actually been pursued by the tobacco industry as to why these things aren't workable are for the birds, they're for the clouds, they're for another world that doesn't exist, because the measures in this bill will ensure we are smoke-free. And I find that really exciting. And that's why...
Right honourable friend, give way.
I will give way.
Thank you very much. He's making an extremely eloquent case. I wonder, he referred to the impact assessment for the bill. I wonder if he has spotted on page 61 the likely societal benefits from having a smoke-free generation are estimated at something like £73 billion by the end of the century. And I wonder if he, like me, believes that the amendment before us actually puts that societal benefit hugely at risk.
It does, for the reasons that I have set out. And I thank my honourable friend for pointing to the impact assessment, because not only does it show a very clear reversal in the current situation where the costs of tobacco to society, to the individual and to the economy and to our health and care services is massive. Actually, in the future, that's reversed. It becomes a positive, not a negative, because people are healthier, they're living longer, they're not living with the comorbidities that have been caused as a direct consequence of tobacco use. They are free from addiction, they are actively participating in the economy. And that is why moving to smoke-free, rather than just shifting the age of sale to a fixed point, and therefore giving the tobacco companies that conveyor belt again, because eventually somebody will reach the age of 25 and be able to be targeted by those tobacco companies. They might not be in as great a number, but we've switched on that conveyor belt. I want that conveyor belt stopping for the next generation. And that's what, to be fair, the last bill did, and it's what this bill does. And that will be about protecting future generations from becoming addicted to nicotine, to having that horrible burden of disease that is caused as a direct consequence of all tobacco products, and breaking the cycle of addiction and disadvantage and allowing people to live healthier lives. That is true freedom. Let's be clear, there's no freedom in addiction. There's freedom from never, ever being able to be sold tobacco and having a genuine smoke-free UK. And it's for this reason I ask that the Shadow Minister withdraws these Liberal Democrat amendments.
Yeah.